Have you ever saved all year for that one family vacation and ended up stressed out about every single dollar?
Not anymore. Hi, I'm Mary Ellen.
And I'm Joe. We're two busy moms who have cracked the code on travel with points and miles.
We're here to show you how we turn everyday expenses into extraordinary vacations.
This is Wonderland on Points, where we share tips and tricks to help you earn free and deeply discounted travel.
Let the adventure begin. Welcome back to Wonderland on Points. Today, we have a friend on the podcast that Joanna actually met at one of the Travel More conferences, which is super fun. And Charlotte, we are so glad you are here. You can find her at Your Pal Charlotte, which is the cutest name because you just exude this energy of you could be everyone's friend because you're just so warm and I love following you. Oh, joy. That's right. Joy just flows out of you. And so we are so glad that you're on the show today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. And though people can't see, they can hear. I'm wearing my shirt that says "Make Friends in Unexpected Places." So,
which I love.
Yes.
We have got to put the link in the show notes to that shirt. I actually wanted to go and buy it myself. I saw you made a reel about it the other day, and I wrote down a note to myself of, I want that shirt, and then I need to go buy it. So we'll put the link in the show notes.
Perfect.
Talk to us a little bit about yourself because you are fascinating. You are traveling all the time, and I really want to know how you ended up here. So we'll talk about your background a little bit, and then we'll talk about kind of how you fell in love with the Philippines and all of the amazing work that you do over there.
Perfect. Yeah, I am always happy to talk about myself. Aren't we all? So, especially the extroverted person that I am. My background, I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area, and I grew up with two traveling parents. Both my mom was very much someone who was paving the way for travelers. She studied abroad in Hong Kong and Italy in the 70s, which the older I get and the more I learn, I'm like, girl, you
That's
really
impressive.
went to the other side of the world with
no
access to a fax machine. That's about it.
It's crazy.
And my dad had done a backpacking trip around Europe when he graduated from college in the late 70s. And it's not as surprising that I also was then bit by the travel bug. And I have a degree in international business with a concentration in Chinese and minor in entrepreneurship. So I knew that I always wanted to be an entrepreneur and to be my own boss. I just didn't know what that would look like and when. So then when I had been in between jobs when the pandemic hit, I felt like God was calling me into entrepreneurship a lot sooner than I had expected. I said, okay, God, your timing, not mine. And I jumped into my content creation full time. And I had been operating under my previous brand, Charlotte from Chicago. And I had went through the rebrand within this past year to Your Pal Charlotte. And I've been really excited throughout that. But throughout my travels, my first travel goal was to visit all 50 states before turning 18, which really kind of started the travel bug. And then once I finished that, the goal was to do 50 countries by my 26th birthday. And now I'm 29 and I'm up to like 56 countries. But then there's countries like the Philippines that I've been back to 9 times. So I'm like, my country list hasn't grown as much since hitting 50, but I've been back to certain places that I love many, many times.
I absolutely love what you said about, God's timing, not our timing. I feel like we've seen that again and again with this podcast. God's just been like, here, do this, here, do that. And we're like, oh, okay, living very open-handedly here. And it was something that kind of drew us to you, is seeing your work in the Philippines. You're very outspoken as a Christian, which we really appreciate and resonate with. And you have been working with an orphanage specifically in the Philippines and doing missions work over there. And I would love to hear about how you got started and all of that. Tell us about the first time that you ever went to the Philippines and then kind of the snowball effect that happened after that.
Absolutely. It's so funny that the way that the orphanage got brought into my life was actually because of a closed door. And I have been in a season of praising God for closed doors and delays and when he has different plans than what we have, because sometimes we just can't predict what's going to happen. And I, as I said, was studying international business in college. So I said, great, I want to spend my summer interning somewhere internationally. And I had gotten an internship lined up in Thailand that summer. And at the last minute, that door abruptly shut, and I was knocked with my feet out from under me, way too close to time to when I was supposed to leave, thinking, okay, well, what now?
Mm.
And I had previously done a semester abroad in Paris. So I went back to Paris and I was there for a week and I was visiting some friends. And I met up with one of my friends who's Filipino American who lives in Paris. And I said, I don't know what's happening. I thought I was doing what God wanted for me. She goes, well, I'm planning on going and volunteering at this orphanage in the Philippines over the summer where my aunt is from. Do you want to come with? And I said, well, I have nothing else going on this summer. Okay. And I fundraised for it myself. This was back in 2017, just did a little GoFundMe to pay for my flights out there. And my friend got injured. She couldn't go. And I said, well, I still feel like I'm being called to go. So I'm going to go. And
Wow.
everyone looked at me and was like, are you sure? You know nothing about the Philippines. You're 20 years old. You don't really know anything about that corner of the world. I'd been to Asia once, and that was China on a group trip. Like, that was simply it. And I said, yeah, it's fine. And so I showed up in the Philippines. Yeah, I was like knowing nothing about the orphanage, nothing about, really just like full feet diving in. I said, okay. And I spent 3 weeks there at the orphanage the first time. And I walked away from that saying, holy cow, how am I supposed to go back to normal life after this?
Yeah.
And something that a lot of people don't realize was that I was so distraught leaving that first time that I ended up booking my flight back before I had left the country the first time because
Wow.
I cried the entire way from the orphanage to the airport, which was a 30-minute ride to an hour and a half ferry to a 2-hour drive back to the airport.
Wow.
And I get to the airport and I'm sitting in a restaurant in the Manila airport looking at flights back for Christmas, just thinking, like, could this even be possible? And as I'm sitting in this restaurant on Google Flights, a flight pops up for the exact dates that I need from Chicago to Manila, round trip for 2 weeks over Christmas for $483.
Oh my gosh.
Round trip. And I said, okay. And as I'm sitting there looking at disbelief, saying, like, that's simply not real, my mom's song came on in the restaurant. And my mom passed away when I was a kid, and I know is one of the reasons that I have the heart for orphans and kids that I do. So I sat there just weeping in this little restaurant in the Manila airport, looking at this $480 flight. And I booked it right then and there and said, well, guess I'll be back here in a few months.
Oh my gosh, I have full
Incredible.
body goosebumps and I'm tearing up. So thank you for that. What an amazing story. And if I want people to go find this reel, maybe we can tag it in the show notes. But recently you had such a cool opportunity, which is getting to see some of the kids that you've been working with come to their home to be with their forever families, and you got to meet them at the airport. I mean, I was like weeping watching this reel. Maybe bring everybody through the past few years and up to present, talking just a little bit about that experience. And then we will, guys, I know it's a Points and Miles podcast. We will talk about Manila and the Philippines and all the stuff as well. But we just think these stories are so incredible and missions work is so transformative. And we don't want to leave this story by the wayside just to focus on a vacation destination.
Absolutely. I have been over there 9 times now over the past 8.5 years. And that includes the time of the pandemic that I didn't visit for a while. So I've been very lucky to be able to go either once or twice a year the last couple of years. The last few years, it's been twice a year, which again, it's a hike out there. And we will talk about the points and miles and the different creative routes I have used to get there. But I first visited in 2017 and throughout college had visited those 2 times, went after, and I have just gotten the privilege to watch these kids grow up. And the pandemic did slow down the adoption processes because just as it did, we all learned to adjust and adapt on how things are. But I've gotten to watch some of these kids grow up, and from being very small babies or toddlers and youngins to now teenagers, and just watch their personalities grow. And it's been incredible. I also laugh because now that they know me so well, it's been so many years, they do not hold back in roasting me at all. At all. And I finally gotten to the age where they're like, Ate Charlotte, why aren't you married? And I'm like, if I was married, I might not be able to spend Christmas out here every year. So, take it. And they're like, why don't you marry a nice Filipino man? I said, I do want you to realize that when I'm here, I interact with only children or men 55 plus. So find me a nice Filipino man in my age range and maybe we'll talk about it.
I love this so much. Kids are so good at roasting. It's unbelievable.
They're crazy. Crazy. I think the biggest one that just really humbled me that now years later the kids still like to laugh about is that I love learning different languages, even if I'm not great at it. And I asked one of the kids to teach me a word in Tagalog, and he said, how about water? I said, okay. And that's too big. And I was repeating it back. I said, too big, too big. And one of the boys who I have been with since he was 2 years old goes, yeah, like in English, too big. Like you, too big.
Oh my goodness.
And then the worst part was he goes, do you get it? I said, yes, I got it.
I got it.
Got it.
Okay.
Loud and clear. Thank you so much.
What's so funny, tying it back, was that when the 3 brothers got adopted to the U.S. and their forever family asked me to be at Dulles to welcome them, it was a surprise for them. And so when they saw me at customs, they ran over. But one of the boys, the middle child, who I'm very close with, who always roasts me, he made a joke about water as soon as he saw me. I'm like, sir, I have literally gone across to be here with you for your special moment. And he immediately wanted to roast me. I said, great, I'm glad you're adjusting well.
He'll fit
it's
right
how they
in.
Express love.
Exactly. Well, and then he followed up. He goes, when was the last time you were in the gym? I was like, literally last week.
The sass.
This sass, as any 16-year-old boy is, because that's what they want. And then the only people I would do this for, I ran a turkey trot with them the next morning.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Their
that's
first
so fun.
day in the U.S. was the day before Thanksgiving, and they ran a turkey trot in the morning. And I came out. I said, people always worry about marrying into a turkey trot family. I said, I willingly came here for you guys. That's how much I love you, that the first turkey trot I would do would be for you guys.
I'm not sure there's anybody I love enough to run for. So
definitely not on Thanksgiving. Oh, that's so fun. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that. Let's dig into Manila a little bit and people who want to explore it. Start us with, because you have flown so many times there, the best airline options, particularly for points from the U.S. Where should people start a search? What hubs might be the best? Are there a couple cities that really have the best deals over to Manila?
Yes, there's a couple different things to note. So one, there's 2 airports in general in the Philippines that have points options. And I feel like people often overlook the fact that Cebu is also an option. And I have previously flown Qatar in and out of Cebu. And depending on what aircraft they're operating, again, you might be able to do Q suites. I believe I was on, I think I was on their A350 and then connected through and then was on a 777 the rest of the way. So even though Manila is the easiest way, there's always that extra option to be checking to make sure that Cebu doesn't have some deal, because maybe you have One World and so you try to prefer to fly Qatar, that could just be an option. But with Manila, just the Philippines in general, it's really important to note that it is not currently a very well-serviced country from the U.S. There's only one U.S. carrier that flies in between the Philippines and the U.S., and that is United. And they only fly twice daily from San Francisco. So if you are looking for a U.S. carrier, the only option that you have is United. There's also Philippines Air, so PAL, and they have a couple different routes within the United States, and they are weird as in not part of an alliance, but they have certain partnerships so that you can, but it's not one that is known for being bookable with points very easily. So that's where we have creative options.
Yes.
So especially capitalizing on things like Atmos rewards. and how not only like with Atmos from previously, so bear with me if I say Alaska because that's what I had booked it under
Yes.
when I was doing it, but being able to build in their free stopover plan as you are doing a points thing. So I had booked a flight through Hong Kong. And also I've flown Cathay Pacific before on points as well. So sometimes even though it's points, the best way is to get over to a bigger hub in Asia and then do a cheap cash flight. So on my
Yes.
most recent trip to the Philippines, I flew over to Taipei, Taiwan, which has much more access from the US. And then from there, just a very cheap, less than $100 ticket from Taipei into Manila. The same with previously, I've done Honolulu to Tokyo and then Tokyo on to Manila. That was a complete points booking, but there's many different options. And that one was actually business, which I very much lucked out on. And I'm sure we can dive into more because that was on the Flying Honu with is ANA's like A380, which was so cool to get to do. But there's still a lot of ways. I feel like often people will overlook the fact of like, oh, you can still fly in with points, but if you're flying a partner airline. So I flew
Right.
the US technically Honolulu to Tokyo, Tokyo to Manila, but not a US carrier. And Honolulu often gets overlooked as being part of the US offerings
Mhm.
for getting to Asia. Cause it's like, well, maybe it is taking more time to get over there. But if you have the flexibility or you want to tack on another trip, because I spent a week in Hawaii first before going to Asia, then there was so much more business class availability than if I had been coming from the West Coast directly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I ran a few searches actually before we hopped on just because I was curious. And I'm seeing Delta flights from Seattle to Manila. That's going to be one of your cheapest options points wise because most of these are distance based award charts. If you're going East Coast, there were a couple creative ways. You already mentioned Cathay Pacific, which you can book American to fly Cathay Pacific routes, but you can also do from the East Coast, you could do like DFW to Manila on Finnair. So like this is why we love these search tools where you can get really creative. I just used the Daydream Explorer on points, and I just ran literally a 5-second search, and I was only looking at ones that would give me taxes and fees that were relatively low. So these are in the 30 to 40,000 points for an economy flight range, but there are creative options even though there are not a lot of like very direct simple options. So if it's somewhere you want to get to, you better buckle up for a long day of travel. And like Charlotte said, you can find probably better deals from repositioning to somewhere else, but there are ways it can be done.
And it's so worth it. And there's often I feel like I've gone the other way once, which was longer, but it worked out very well. I flew Air France once from Manila to Paris, Paris to DC, which is
Oh.
the longer route, but I wanted to do it because they had just restarted that route from Paris to Manila for the first time in over 20 years. And it was on Air France's A350, which, as we know, is a very nice product. And I was able to book it on points. And that one-way flight in total was, I want to say, between 40 and 50. It might have been like 48,000. But then, because of when I was traveling, I was flying right after Christmas, so there wasn't that many people. There was availability. And once I landed in Paris, I checked for the upgrades and I was able to get a cash upgrade the final flight for only $623 business class on the 777 Air France from Paris to DC to Dulles, but that also gave me lounge access and it was the best points upgrade. Like, because I had paid points for the whole long haul, I was like, I can justify this cash upgrade. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in travel. I needed that after a long day.
I'm sure you were exhausted. I think everyone might be able to tell from everything that you keep saying that Charlotte is somewhat of an aviation geek. You keep saying as as we all know, or as everyone knows, I have to tell you, I don't think that everyone knows. I don't. I think that a lot of us hear things about certain aircraft, but unless you're studying it on a regular basis and really paying attention and deep in it, it's easy for that information to go in and out. This is not on our questions list, but do you have a website that you like for people to look up the aircraft that they're going to be on to really decide if like the points are worth it for which aircraft this is? Is there a place where you study all your aviation geekery?
Yeah,
Has anyone ever said that word?
No, it's great. I would say there's a couple different things that you can do. One, just the basic of figuring out what aircraft you're on. If you're looking on Google Flights, if you've already like booked something, it will tell you within your airline. You don't have to search very far, but specifically if you are on Google Flights, it will show you what type of aircraft, and you can add add-ons to Google Flights that will allow you to see how much legroom you would have in an economy seat, so you can compare between different airlines of, maybe I have 29 inches of pitch versus 32, so you have a little bit more legroom. But one of the websites that I use for all of my comparing of flights is Aerolopa, and I actually just made a reel about that 2 days ago because I did the rookie move where I didn't check the window seat that I was given, and I sat down and there was no window in my window seat.
It should be illegal.
It felt so embarrassing to sit down. I'm like, it feels like someone put me in a corner. And thankfully my flight wasn't full, so I asked the flight attendants if I could move up one row. I was like, that was so embarrassing that I did this, being the traveler that I am. So you can go on Aerolopa, and all you need is to have your airline and what type of aircraft you're on. And you can see what the seating looks like, where the windows line up. But that's also where you can see, if you're flying business, what does that configuration look like? And knowing that, an A350, this is going to be where maybe Delta One is versus, these are lay flat seats, but they're older. And it will also show you that configuration. The big dreaded one is Virgin Atlantic, and how it's the very different business class experience of flying on their A350, which is actual like suites, versus the quote unquote coffins, which are so weirdly shaped. But so on Aerolopa, you'd be able to see, these are actual kind of block seats versus they're the weird staggered bits.
So helpful. I'm going to tag that in the show notes, guys.
Let's circle back to Manila itself. So now we have an idea, some options for flights, how to get there. Talk to us about hotels. Are there any particular hotel chains that are more represented in the Philippines? So many of us love Hyatts, but Hyatt does not have a big footprint, not compared to Marriott or Hilton. So what are the best options going to be if someone wants to look towards planning a trip there? What hotel chains should they be thinking about? Okay, these are the points that I'm probably going to need.
Two things that I would point out is that, one, the US dollar goes so far in the Philippines that sometimes it might not be worth it points-wise for hotels. And that is just something to think of. Maybe I want to splurge my points on a business class flight over there versus a hotel. If you can get a nice luxury hotel for what would be a very, very modest hotel in New York City. So it's always worth doing the travel math to see how many cents per points that you're getting, and does this make sense points wise. But if your goal is to use points and you have points to burn, you have points to spend, more power to you. Love it. Marriott has a lot of options throughout the Manila area. Again, I don't think Hyatt has any. If not, maybe they have one in Manila. They have two in Manila, but I don't think anywhere else throughout the country. There's lots of Marriotts, lots of Hiltons, but I've stayed more exclusively within Marriott's. And also IHG has a lot of properties. I have done a lot of in and outs of hotels right next to the airport, because this is one thing that I would recommend on the logistics side, is that the Manila airport is one of those airports that unfortunately you do just want to give yourself 3 to 4 hours. Sometimes you'll need it, sometimes you won't. and you'd always rather have that extra time and get to the airport. Traffic in Manila is historically very challenging. So there is a resort city, is what it is called, that is right next to the airport. And all of these wonderful hotels are connected via Skybridge, and you can get to and from the airport very easily. So I've stayed at the Sheraton there and absolutely loved it. It's across the street from a Hilton. And I've also stayed at the Holiday Inn. And they all range on average between like $80 a night to maybe 150, closer to 200, depending on how nice you want. But to have that proximity to the airport, if I'm ever flying in late at night, or if I ever have a flight in the morning that's before 11 a.m., I always spend a night at the hotel nearby. And also, most of them offer plane spotting views from the hotel, which is just a nice bonus for any av geeks. But it is always more worth it to not be stressing and say, I'm just going to spend the night in a hotel near the airport. I would encourage that. I've looked, there's a lot of points redemptions. Also, once you go into the city farther, there's a lot of luxury hotels. So you can look at the Peninsula, you can look at the Four Seasons, the Ritz, the St. Regis. They have a lot of options there. So if that's something that you are looking for, or let's say that you are using your Amex Fine Hotels and Resorts credit, there are some great options there. But the important thing is to know that you've got options. It's not necessarily like, oh, you have to use your points this way. It's like, no, there's multiple chains, there's multiple ways, there's a lot of cash deals, which is the fun puzzle piece of points and miles travel, is finding where it makes sense and where's a good deal.
Absolutely. I did notice during my research that there is a Conrad in Manila, and I think a lot of us think of Conrads as an insanely expensive points redemption, no matter where they are. The random dates that I put in, which I don't remember when they were now, sorry guys, but it was showing 50,000 points a night for the Conrad, which we know from Amex would only be 25,000 points a night because it's that 1 to 2 transfer to Hilton. So I thought that sounds like a pretty fun way to do something as fancy as a Conrad and still be spending nothing out of pocket. So definitely there's a lot of options. It's just not the route we typically go with the Hyatt. There were 2 Hyatts when I looked. Both of them were 15,000 points a night for the dates that I looked at, which actually seemed high to me. We've done episodes on like Thailand and stuff and have been shocked by how low the redemptions are. So when I saw 15,000, when I saw the categories that these hotels were in Manila, I was actually a little surprised. But that's the difference, because Hyatt is that fixed award chart versus the dynamic award charts of others. If a hotel falls in a certain category, it's still going to be that level. It's not going to change based on the cash rate. So I would definitely look into cash rates to see, because they might be really, really low, even though it's a category 4 or category 5 or whatever it may be.
Exactly. And the big thing to note about the Philippines is that they are so known for their hospitality. So that if you are, oh, I'm getting a deal on this luxury hotel, maybe it's going to be less service because I'm over in this country. No, Filipinos are so wonderful. Their service is great. And a lot of people don't realize is that the biggest export of the Philippines is their people. They're called OFWs, Overseas Filipino Workers, and there's separate lines at airports for them. It is such a cultural building block that often people get jobs and go work overseas. If you've ever taken a cruise, there is a statistically high chance that you have encountered a Filipino on a cruise ship that's working there. And they're just known for being in these hospitality jobs because they, as a culture, are just such nice, caring people. So getting to go be in the tourism space within the luxury hotels, you just know you're in for a great experience, because Filipinos are simply just the sweetest and kindest people that you will meet. And if you love karaoke, you'll love Filipinos.
I do love karaoke.
Well, tell us about some of your favorite spots in and around Manila, whether it's beach spots or other, you've explored probably volcano hikes, waterfall hikes within all the Philippines. Give us your favorite spots, because if somebody's going to go all the way to the Philippines, they can hop around, they can explore a little bit. So give us your top destinations that people have to check out if they're there.
Absolutely. top destination for sure in the Philippines is the island of Palawan, which is where El Nido is. And that is one of the very famous ones that everyone hears about. And it is those incredible rock formations that just pop out of the ground, the blue water. It does indeed live up to the hype. It is so beautiful, so wonderful. And it's one of my favorite places in the world. The beaches are incredible. And there's very well-known island hopping tours. So people get these boat tours where it's like island or tour A, tour B, and you get to go all around El Nido on these tiny boats. The ones that you see these a lot in the Philippines, of that they're a little bit more narrow and they have the sides and just the bars that connect to them. I don't know what it is. There's just something so beautiful about it. It's because our boats look so different. And you can have faster speed boats and that, but this is just the iconic Filipino transport boat, the fisherman boat, and getting to see a sea full of them is really, really cool. Getting there from Manila, there's two options. You can fly into El Nido directly, and that is the best option. I would say it's a little bit more expensive than flying into the other island or the other city on island, which is the capital, which is Puerto Princesa. 10 out of 10 times it is worth the little bit more. Even if a flight's $100 more, do it, because I was traveling with some Filipinos, and so we were being more budget conscious because obviously the peso does not correlate to the US dollar in that way. We flew into Puerto Princesa, and it was a 5-hour drive on a one-way or a single lane windy road in a 12-person bus.
Oh my goodness.
In the 12 people, 8 threw up.
Oh no, it would be me.
I would be down.
It would 100% be me and Mary Ellen. We are both notorious motion sick girls.
Yeah, so there's a lot of smaller regional airports that's easy to fly into. So it's very worth it. Very safe intercountry travel of aircraft. Sometimes there have been countries that I've been to where I'm like, how safe is your inter flights and travel and not bigger regulated things? The Philippines is great. Also, ferries are a very easy way to get around because the Philippines is a completely island nation. Ferry travel is very common and not something that necessarily we as Americans think about as like, oh yeah, this is a very normal way of travel, but the ferry terminals are nice. They, in the pandemic, shifted a lot, and now you can buy a lot of your tickets online. It used to be that you have to show up at the ferry terminal a couple hours early and buy it. So they've moved and developed a lot better there. But I would say El Nido, and then there is an island above El Nido called Coron, and that is another very famous beach spot. I have yet to go, but it's very high up on my list. Palawan, though, in general, is so magnificent. There's also a very unique island in the Philippines called Boracay. That is known for being white sand beaches. It is stunning. It's a very thin, narrow island. You fly in to an island right below it, and then you just take a quick boat ride over. I believe most hotels have organized the boat ride over there. It's very easy. But what's interesting is it used to be known for being a very party island. So if you are hearing me say Boracay, don't immediately write it off. It used to be known as the more party spot. And then President Duterte years ago said, a direct quote, he called it a cesspool, and he shut the island down. Oh yeah. He shut the island down for a few years and said, we, one, environmentally are going to clean this up, but two, just like ethically are cleaning this up. So you still can find hostels, you can still find partying, but there's a lot more luxury that has come in, and it's a little bit more of a well-rounded island spot to visit that's not just known for partying anymore, which is nice. One thing I will disclaim here, the Philippine sun is stronger than the sun anywhere else that I've ever experienced.
Oh, we need to know that.
The worst sunburn I got in my entire life was in Boracay, and I had reapplied sunscreen. It is one of those places you do not want to mess around. I don't know the science behind it, but it has to be where we are on the latitude, longitude, where it is with the ozone. The UV is so strong in the Philippines. So it's just something to be mindful of, that you'll get the sun, you'll get that, but you want to be protecting yourself. And Filipinos are very good about that. So it's as cheesy as it is, sometimes buying one of those swim shirts that has like longer sleeves to protect yourself if you're going to be doing an all-day island hopping because you do not want to get burned on the first day and then be miserable for the rest of your trip.
Sun sickness is a real thing. Do not put yourself in that position.
Absolutely. And bringing little fans to carry around. Culturally, they carry it around. You'll see that they get hot. They'll do the rags in the back of their t-shirts over their necks to stay cool. So you want to be setting yourself up for success there. I would say of other Philippines destinations, Manila is something everyone should see, but it's not somewhere that you would need to necessarily spend a week. You can do a few days in Manila, but it is just a large, big city. And people, there's nothing wrong with that, but people are often going to the Philippines for their beaches, for more of their culture, not necessarily just visiting a big city. And if you are looking for the big city feel, but still something more unique, I would recommend Cebu. So Cebu, Manila is on the island of Luzon, which is the northernmost island. Cebu is more halfway through the country. And Cebu, another big city, big airport, but what Cebu is very famous for is the ability, one, a very big diving facility. So if anyone is interested in diving, if they have their diving certification, Cebu is a great place for that. You can swim with whale sharks. And that is one of the big things that the Philippines is known for, is the whale sharks. And if you've been to the Atlanta Aquarium, they used to have two, now they have one of the huge whale sharks, and they are just massive beyond belief. I believe in Cebu you can also swim with manta rays.
Oh, fun.
So very Moana-esque. There's just some incredible things there, but you still get the big city vibe, but you are much more close to beaches and the sea than you are in Manila. Manila is very much either ports in and out or city. So if you still want the city vibe, recommending Cebu over that. And there's a lot of misconception about southern Philippines, Mindanao. That is one of the places that the US is like, hey, reconsider travel to. I haven't been there yet, but that's where I want to asterisk of, because sometimes the US government on their website is saying like, oh, reconsider places to travel. People just look at the Philippines, and if they see any alert, they're like, oh, maybe I won't go there. It's like, well, it's actually just certain regions that the country is maybe like, hey, so don't write off a country that you don't understand for one island that you might be worried about. It's the same of, imagine if someone called me and said, hey, I'm so worried about you because of something happening in Florida. I was like, that's so kind of you. I am over 1,000 miles away, and I am very unlikely to be impacted by something happening in southern Florida. Like a hurricane, I get it. I just have no reason to be concerned. So there's so much of the Philippines that is very safe, is a wonderful place to be. And as a solo young woman, I have never been to the Philippines with someone. Every trip has been solo. Wow. So it's not something that I worry about. And I know that people often get worried about language barriers, especially in Asia. I describe the Philippines as a country with subtitles, because English is such a wildly spoken language. So much signage is in English. It is still authentically themselves, though. It's not like, oh, they speak English and it's very westernized. It is so authentically themselves that it is like a country with subtitles, which is such a beautiful, unique thing. And people are excited to get to speak English, and they will tell you if they've just expunged all their English in a term called a nosebleed. So you might be speaking with a Filipino, and all of a sudden they're just like, I want to be out of this conversation. And they'll say nosebleed and excuse themselves.
That is
and you're
hilarious.
Oh, okay.
The first time it happened to me, it happened like back to back with people. I said, simply, there are not this many Filipinos getting nosebleeds in front of me. What's happening?
Yeah, what is happening? Why is everyone getting nosebleeds?
And I'm like, also, I didn't see any blood. What are you talking about? And then people are like, oh, no, that's just what they say because the English is bleeding out of them. I was like, that's okay.
That is amazing. Mary Ellen, the nurse, would be very concerned to run into that. She'd be like, okay, what can I help with?
Let me help. Pinch your nose. Here we go.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about food then. I'm sure the Filipino food is absolutely fantastic. what is your favorite meal? Let's start with anything you may have eaten in Manila, so it's easy for people to kind of start there, and then branch out if you've had something extra delicious somewhere else that people should visit.
Yes, there's a couple things. One, I will say this with my chest, and I know people will fight me. The Philippines has the best mangoes. I'm sorry to Thailand. I'm sorry to Mexico. I believe that the Philippines has the best, sweetest mangoes. So if you like mangoes, you have to be getting them when you're in the Philippines. They are just divine. My other favorite food, all of my Filipinos laugh at me because they're like, why is this your favorite food? And I don't know. It's just simply delicious. Every time I've had it, it's been wonderful. The Tagalog name is torta talong, and it translates to eggplant omelet.
Oh, I love eggplants. Love.
Yes, it is not our Western thick eggplants. It's a Japanese thinner eggplant, and they are roasted over open fire and then smashed down and then whisked in with egg and fried in an omelet. And so sometimes people put bits of meat or onions or other things, and it's still attached to the stem of the eggplant. And then they eat it with rice and usually a little bit of sauce. And it is simply the best thing ever. And it's so simple and so good. And all the kids make fun of me for it. And so when I'm at the orphanage, the chef, like the cook, always knows that that's my favorite, and the kids will make fun of me. They're like, "Ate Charlotte, tortata long." I'm like, I'm so excited for this little eggplant, and it's something you can easily get anywhere. Honestly, something you could probably find at some U.S. Filipino restaurants as well. But highly recommend that. And even though it's an omelet, it's not a breakfast food. It is an all day food.
It sounds amazing.
Some of the other things, adobo, specifically chicken adobo, is wonderful. It's a little vinegary, and it usually has bay leaves in it, and it's served with rice. Pretty much everything you eat will be served with rice. I joke that
I'm on board with that.
Yes. I joke that I eat a full year's worth of rice in like my 2 to 3 week trips when I'm there, and it's wonderful. But adobo is phenomenal, like chicken adobo, pork adobo. Those are typically what will be served. Not spicy, very easy. Like if you are traveling with kids, I'm pretty sure your children will love the simplicity of chicken adobo, pork adobo. That is a great, safe meal. If you like a little bit of heat, sisig is great. I am a wimp when it comes to anything spicy. So sisig often can be a little too hot for me, but it is something that's served in a skillet very hot, and it usually has some pepper, some sort of meat, an egg on top, and it is a very traditional Filipino food that people love, that you can find everywhere. You can find it in the city, you can find it in the provinces, everything. Very easy to get. If you are a bold person and want to try a Filipino delicacy,
hit us with
and
it. Come on, bring it.
A strong one, a strong stomach, is balut.
Okay.
Balut is something that is not for the weak. It is a hard-boiled, fertilized duck egg.
Oh.
And you can buy it on the street for less than $1. You can find it in a lot of places. But it is an actual hard-boiled duck egg, and they have the little embryo growing in it. And I know.
Joe's out.
I don't like hard-boiled chicken eggs that are not fertilized. So I don't know what made me think that I could even attempt balut. It is something that they love, or it's a love or you hate it, and I can't. I simply can't. So if you're wanting to experience things, you want to go to the night markets. The Philippines is very well known for having night markets. And you can buy barbecue, you can buy little pastries, you can buy fresh fruit. Balut will always be sold there. And one thing that people don't realize, the translation of words, is that buko is coconut. So you'll often be at night markets and see buko juice, or like buko pancakes, whatever. That means coconut. And fresh coconut in the Philippines, wonderful. So I always get buko juice when I'm places, and love that. Love the fresh fruit. Love the tropical fruit. The balut is a hard pass for me.
Yeah, I don't even like hard-boiled eggs. Absolutely not. Same as you. That sounds horrifying. I am very open to trying new things, but I have to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah. They also love to put cheese in a lot of things that I would not expect cheese to be in. They serve a lot of, I was served a cheese mango ice cream recently.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so if you like cheese, you'll really like the Philippines. And they try a lot of flavors that I'm not always anticipating. But another food that is a little bit more fancy, but if you have the opportunity, lechon. That is a like full roast pig. We've done it for Christmas the last couple of years, and it is wonderful. It is everything that you think, and a lot of Latin American cultures have some sort of lechon within their culture, and the Philippines is the same. So to have this big roast pig, and you can get it from some stores often as well, like in a more individual portion, because most people are not looking for a 43-kilo pig like
Mhm.
I am when we're serving the entire orphanage. But it is delicious, and to have it with rice and with for dessert some sort of ube, which is a purple sweet potato that is also very Filipino. Those are just wonderful all around.
Ube has a very specific flavor. I got some from Costco. I got some ube coconut crispy twist up things, and I was like, wow, I was not expecting this flavor that came through here. It's very interesting. They're not bad. It's just different.
Okay, what helpful apps do people need to know about before they go to the Philippines? You know, something to help with navigation or maybe food ordering, like their version of Uber Eats, or what apps, if any, can you think of that would be really helpful for people?
Huge first is Grab. Grab is the Southeast Asian version of Uber. So that is a non-negotiable when you're in bigger cities, because they don't use it really in the provinces. But if you're in Manila, if you want to be able to call a ride from the hotel, if you want to be able to order food, Grab is it. I will say you can grab a scooter as you can in some places like Bali and other places, and that makes me incredibly uncomfy. I
Oh, yeah.
will not be on the back of a scooter, but it's an option. So Grab is what you need for that. You can order food. Food Panda is another ordering service that they use for food. That is probably like the biggest one. I would say Google Maps does work in some more of the provinces. It's gotten a lot better. So when I first visited in 2017 versus now, night and day difference. Night and day difference. Also, what is so interesting is that the Philippines uses Facebook more than any country I've ever been to.
That's awesome.
They love Facebook. And businesses often, instead of having maybe strong Instagram pages, they will communicate through Facebook. And so you can reach out to restaurants on Facebook and see like, hey, are you open? That kind of stuff. Some of them will have Instagram, but Facebook is still one of those apps that people communicate with a lot. And I'm excited for something else to be coming in the future. When I was there in December, they said that they were about to beta test something for foreigners. Right now, it's only for Filipinos, but there is an app called Gcash, because one of the big issues is being able to pay for foreigners to pay, because the Philippines is such a cash heavy country. So places in like Manila, you can use card, and some of the bigger places, but cash is still very, very prevalent throughout the entire country, especially if you are using public transit like a jeepney or a tricy. It is only cash. You're in markets, only cash. So similar to how in China they have Alipay and they have things that you can scan and pay, and how we have Venmo, the Philippines has Gcash. But you need to be a Filipino to be able to use it. And I think they have finally realized, we actually need to let foreigners be able to use this. So when I tried to download it in December, they said we're going to beta test and allow people to use it for 30 days as foreigners to be able to use for travel. So depending on at the time at which you're listening to this, it's worth it to check and see if the beta testing is out there and available for you if you are someone who doesn't love to use cash as much. And the little thing that I would note about using cash is that so many people get really hung up on the fact of like, oh, I don't want to change over money in the airport. They're scamming me. They're going to take so much money in fees. Sometimes that's true. I think one thing that people overlook is how strong the US dollar is in that country. So I previously traded over $2,000, changed over from US to Filipino pesos. I want to say I maybe lost like $8, $10. I'm like, that's for the convenience of not leaving the airport and
Right.
doing that right now.
Worth
That's
it.
just normal. That's fine. And I was shocked at how good of a rate it was, because sometimes I've been places where they're like, yeah, it's going to be $40, $50 for like a very small amount of money to change over. I'm like, no, this is a very good thing in such a cash heavy country. And also they prefer $100 bills. So like if you are changing over cash and you want to bring over $500, I would try to recommend five $100 bills instead of bringing over 20s and 10s, because they will not often accept anything that has a little bit of a tear in it or anything. They need it crisp, clean.
Crisp and new from the bank. Yeah.
Yes, that is what they prefer. That is what's easy to get around. The Philippines is very heavy coins, so sometimes bringing a coin purse is worth it as well. They have very pretty bills, but they still use a lot of coins going around, so you'll accumulate those, and you don't want those jingling around in your purse. But overall, it's very easy to get around. There's a lot of ATMs. If you have a card that does not have foreign transaction fees, that is great to use. But it's also important to note that a lot of ATMs have a withdrawal limit of 10,000 pesos per transaction. So if 10,000 pesos is maybe like 200, 100, 200, between 100 and 200 US dollars. So it's not that much. So if you are getting hit with a foreign transaction fee or getting hit with an ATM fee, that's something that can add up very quickly. And the savings that you would have of just taking over cash and changing it over in the airport very much offsets having to take out money from an ATM later.
Okay. Before we wrap up, can give us a quick idea, just so people know how much cash they really need to have. Like when you're saying 10,000 pesos, like how much is a meal out? Like your average street food or that kind of thing. The things you're paying cash for, how much is a bus ride or a Grab? Give us an idea of prices in pesos so people can make a really educated decision on how much cash they might need to bring.
Yeah, it really ranges with certain things, but I would say again that you can get full large meals out at big chains for the equivalents of 7 or 8 US dollars, and that is like something significantly bigger, that you can go to places and be getting a meal for 500 pesos, maybe a little bit less depending on if you are at a more like local spot. So regionally, my coffee shop where I go to, the coffee that I will get is 170 pesos. So it's about 230, 250 US dollars, like $2.30. So like significantly cheaper there. When you're taking a tricy or a jeepney, which is more public transit, but I would say with an asterisk, you just kind of hail a cab. Going into town is less than $1 for me. So there's that. You could get maybe 80 pesos, 100 pesos as you're running around Manila. So it really depends on how long you're out there for. And I would say, though, in general, you can get very easy meals for $5 to $10 a meal. And that the cost of Grabs are very, very reasonable. So it's hard to say, it's like, oh, how much to spend per day.
No, I think that's
of what you're
helpful. I
doing.
think
But yeah.
that gives us a really good framework for deciding how much to bring. Before we wrap up, because we are almost to the end of our time, we mentioned this earlier. This is off the topic now of the Philippines, but I have to talk to you about it before you go because it's so cute and you've posted a lot about it on your Instagram. You are a self-proclaimed aviation geek. We mentioned that. What are some of your favorite plane paint schemes? Because many people know of like the Eva Air Hello Kitty planes, but what are some of the other fun ones out there that people should be looking for?
Yes, fantastic question. One of the coolest ones, I think, is the ANA A380, the Flying Honu. So there's only 3 of them in existence. They are, so if you don't know what an A380 is, it is the full double-decker plane. It is the largest passenger plane out there. And ANA has 3 of them, and they're 3 different colors, and they're painted like turtles. And they only fly between Honolulu and Tokyo. That is the only route that they fly, and they're so beautiful. And inside, things are color-coded, and it's wonderful. And I flew on points with them in business class from Honolulu to Tokyo and then Tokyo to Manila. And it was just so cool. Everything about it, the getting to be in the lounge in like Honolulu was wonderful. You can buy really cool liveries. I love it. Alaska has phenomenal liveries, which if you are a Disneyland person, they have a Pixar one. They have they have Princess and the Frog. They have so many cool ones. Southwest is big on states.
Yes.
Which a lot of people don't
I want to
realize.
fly on one of those.
There's so many different states represented. And I was recently driving and I saw Maryland one. And
Yay! Go
So
Maryland.
I was like, oh, look at that. I just find it really fitting when they have the plane landing in the state where they're in. Like, oh, that's so fitting to see the Maryland flag one here, like at BWI or at DCA. But there's so many cool ones there. Internationally, there's some bigger ones. ANA has done a couple other unique ones. They just retired their Star Wars one, and it's just such a cool thing to also just spot in the wild. I was at the Charlotte airport this week, and I found 5 liveries just as I was walking through the airport.
Wow.
Ones that I had never seen before. So when you're flying, it's always fun to just kind of look around and see what's there, because you'll never know. Or Delta had one that was thanking all of their employees, and they had all the employees' names written on it at the time. And just really cool story-filled ones like that. Or for the Olympics, they had their specialty one. So it's almost like more fun to discover one is your favorite that you didn't know existed. But I would say, because I love the A380, that the ANA Flying Honu was so magical. And I have 3 of those little model liveries in my living room. I genuinely spent more on in-flight buying these liveries than I did on the fees.
Points and miles life.
Yes, I think fees were $60 and I spent $90 on little model planes.
Worth it.
Yes.
What do you think the odds are? I had a friend of the show who's been on the show, Kate's on a Plane on Instagram, if anyone wants to look her up. She just messaged me this past week, actually, because of a new route, an EVA Air route to DC. And she was like, what do you think the odds are that we're going to get a Hello Kitty plane? You know, we're just hoping over here in the DC area that maybe we will get one of those routes. What do you think?
It's very likely in the way of, so that plane, the Hello Kitty is, I believe, on their 787 Dreamliner, because that is the fleet that they are more known for flying. And I'm personally super duper excited. I had just met with TECRO, which is the Taiwanese Economic, I lose the acronym, but it is similar to the embassy. And I was just talking with them about the route launching and all of that. And they're so excited. And I was talking with the people at Dulles and they're so excited. So I feel like the likelihood, historically, the fact that this is the first time we've ever gotten this route in existence, I think they want to go all out. So it's not a no. It's not a 0 chance to get the Hello Kitty. And I'm hoping that Dulles would do some sort of activation around it if that happens. But they have some really cool liveries, and I am excited beyond belief for that route to be launching in July.
Dulles, if you're listening, I volunteer to be at the launch. I can go on the initial flight.
She can
if you'd
be
like.
there in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. Okay, Charlotte, thank you so much for coming on today, for sharing your heart, which is so beautiful. And we love talking about this on the show. Mary Ellen has done missions trips. I've done missions trips. We are big missions people here. And the fact that you just plugged into this community and got to help watch these kids and foster these kids with all of your love and care and get them all the way to the point where some of them are going to be with their forever families and you're getting to be there for those moments. So warm and fuzzy and makes me just incredibly emotional. And so thank you for telling that story and then for helping us dig into the Philippines a little bit. I know it's far. Like people are kind of resistant to going so far, especially when you've got limited PTO, but it really feels like one of those places that's just worth it. It's worth the travel. And I just really appreciate you being here today to help us dig into everything.
Thank you so much. And to everyone listening, again, it is indeed so worth it. I promise. And if you want to dive deeper, again, feel free to connect with me. I love talking about the Philippines. I post about the Philippines often. So if you have deeper questions than what I have just been able to share, or you want to know more specifically, as I chatted with the girls about how I took so many routes to get into the Philippines on different points and miles. It's hard to cover everything in just an hour. So if you have more questions, I'm always happy to chat.
Okay, Charlotte, can you tell us, just remind everybody where they can find you online, all the places?
Yes, I am your pal Charlotte on everything, spelled as you would expect. Your PAL Charlotte, CHARLOTTE, because as we are growing up, people are finally learning how to spell my name, which is a joyful thing after going so much of my life with everyone spelling it wrong. But yes, I'm your pal Charlotte across everything: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all the things.
Perfect. I'm going to link everything up in the show notes, guys, so it's really easy for you to find Charlotte. She's an excellent follow, such a fun account, such an amazing person. And we will see all of you guys here next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. We hope you learned something new and feel inspired to plan your next trip.
Remember, we're travelers sharing our experiences, not financial advisors, so always do your own research and make informed decisions.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss a Points and Miles tip.
We'll see you next time on Wonderland on Points.